Hello, everybody, and welcome to day 3 of the 2023 preseason test for the top class. This time, we are here at the Red Bull Ring in Spielberg, Austria, for the penultimate day of preseason testing for the top class. And as you can see by the weather, well, it's going to get quite interesting, it seems. I think, even though it says there's rain at the plus 30 mark, I think we are potentially maybe going to have a dry session, but we'll have to wait and see. It could all surprise us, but it is going to start off dry regardless, though. Anyway, I'm JW97, and just like yesterday, I'm joined by my arch nemesis Ra.
Yep, hello everybody, and yeah, let's see what everyone can do on the different track here. This time at Austria.
Yep, and quite interested to see what the teams are going to be like around this track, especially given it's a completely different track to Mazzano. But I think without any further ado, let us get on with day 3 of preseason testing here at the Red Bull Ring. And I'll have to wait and see how that one happens, really. If Yuri can press the OK button, that is. I don't know if he's just disappeared or not. As I think we'll just wait. I guess something's happened with Yuri there because we can just hear him in the background, although he hasn't pressed OK yet. Just waiting to see what happens, really. But yeah, it should be quite an interesting one indeed, because obviously this is a completely different track to Mazzano. It's more of a power track than it is a downforce track. So hopefully it should be interesting to see, especially I guess as we're still waiting for Yuri to start everything. So he hasn't really said what's going on. There we go. He's just as I put a message in the stream chat. He just not in the stream chat, in our little chat lady, and he just pressed the OK button. I guess something was going on in the background. But yeah, should be quite interesting. I think for one team in particular, I'll be hoping it's much better than what they had at Mazzano, really. I'll be hoping that their straight line speed will be a lot better than what their downforce package was leading towards looking at Mazzano. But yesterday in day 2, Ra, I think it's safe to say that I don't think we really got, we couldn't really tell much because obviously it was changeable conditions.
Yeah, we didn't really get much information into that, but yeah, it could be with the changeable conditions, but yeah, and of course we used the same tires, so we did use them as in day 1, so yeah, we would have hoped for a different tire compound, but unfortunately, Yuri's run decided no.
Yeah, indeed, and Yuri just explaining to us there why he was a little bit late to press the OK button. It was because his phone went off. It seemed that somebody wanted to talk to Yuri for some reason. But anyway, as we get underway then for the first day here at Spielberg, the first of 2 days that is, and it's going to be Gabriel Gomez who's going to set out onto the track first of all. And it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, Toyota looked very stunned with their downforce package around here at Mazzano, but now we're going to see what their engine speed is like around here.
Yeah, let's see what the engine's going to be like in Austria, since this is a power circuit, as you alluded to earlier. Gomez, he was off from his teammate Franco Lopez, of course. He is getting to grips on being in the top class car for the first time since 2020, and of course he was a reserve driver back in 2021 and 2022. So let's see what he could do let's see what he can do.
Yeah, indeed, and you are correct there, Dennis. There are no reserve drivers to report about. Maybe we'll get some for tomorrow, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But anyway, Gomez is going to start a lap for us in the Toyota, and we're looking at Chris Chatfield here. Looks like he's going to get overtaken by the Haas here. Not sure which Haas it is, but the Haas is clearly struggling to get past him. Going into the second last corner, of course, both of them carrying the same engine in the back, the Ferrari engine, and it looks like the Ferrari in the back of the Haas is trying to get by on the Ferrari pretty quickly down into the first corner. Let's see if the Haas can get through, which it will do indeed, and that Haas couldn't quite tell. In fact, the helmet just went at the blink of an eye there. But looking at Joseph Willows now in the McLaren, and we know that last season the BMW engine did have some pretty good power down the straight, but it just didn't have the reliability to back it up.
Yeah, let's see if it's the same this season, and hopefully the reliability is better for them. So far, we only had one mechanical issue, but that was a brake issue, not really engine related. But we did have one mechanical failure from a car from day 2. Let's see if everyone can stay away from reliability issues, but you can never tell. We might have a few more.
Indeed so, as we now look at Bence Valdinga, who's just making his way around the left-hander. Gomez has just set the benchmark of time, but gets quickly beaten by Julius Anderson, who goes 51 thousandths quicker than Gomez there. Joseph Willows actually goes 6 tenths quicker than Anderson on that lap. Does a 1 minute 4.496. Sazonov goes into 4th position there. Kloss now to the top, but only by 96 thousandths of a second. So Willows actually setting pretty good first lap there. I don't know if that... In fact, I think, no, I don't think it was Kloss, so it must have been Chung then that got held up by Chatfield, who we saw a little bit earlier on. Valdinga across the line, he will go, goes into 3rd, make that 4th, because Carr now goes to the top by 2 tenths, and of course Carr trying to make up for yesterday, really, because of course, let's not forget, Carr ended up having a mechanical failure yesterday, and he's pretty much playing catch-up in terms of the running.
Yeah, pretty much. He didn't really get any wet running at all in day 2, so ain't ideal, and he is pretty much playing catch up here.
Yeah, indeed. Byrne now goes to the top by 7 thousandths of a second, as it looks like Patel and Lopez, I think, may have been following each other there as they were grouped together in 7th and 8th, but it's now 8th and 9th because Carr goes up into 4th position as more lap times start to come about, as I think Carr we just saw there a little bit earlier on might be interfering with somebody's lap. Here, George Roque goes into 5th as he just overtakes, I think that's Andre Verderi, into that first corner. Let's not forget as well that George Roque was rumoured at one point to possibly be with Ferrari if he missed out on the Red Bull seat, and I guess the fact that he's been retained with Red Bull, he's kind of blessing he's pretty much breathing a sigh of relief given the pace that Ferrari have been able to demonstrate so far.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, he really needed a season like what he had last season, and that's what got him retained at Red Bull.
Yep, indeed, and well, that's pretty much that really. As now we look, as now all 22 cars have started the lap per in, and only 1,000th off of Kloss, who's currently at the top of the leaderboard at this stage. Now, then Carr is actually coming back into the pits this time by. In fact, I think it was him who was overtaking Valdinga on that occasion. Lopez goes up into P number 11, and safe to say, comments yesterday that Lopez made, it said looking very promising in the Toyota. Of course, he's not expecting to fight for the title, but he has been said some very positive things about the pace that the Toyota's been able to demonstrate already.
Yeah, and that's good information from Lopez and good feedback from him to Toyota, and hopefully they can build that on going into next season. Hopefully they can pick up some strong results during the season.
Indeed so, and his former teammate Carr now just making his way into the pit lane, and of course one team that we were going to be curious about, we were talking about a little bit earlier on in terms of which team could be better, we'll be hoping they can do better on the power tracks, and that is of course Ferrari, because so far the downforce package has not looked particularly good on them at the moment, and they'll be hoping their straight line speed kind of counteracts that as Lopez now goes into the pits now then. But I'm just looking at where Chatfield and Verderi are at the moment. Verderi 21st, Chatfield at the moment currently in 14th position. Not sure if they had any traffic. I know that Chatfield got overtaken earlier on by Laura Chung, but I'm not sure if he's been able to get a better lap in since. But so far, of course, this could change as the session progresses, but so far, it looks like even the straight line speed is not being able to counteract at the moment, and it seems that the straight line speed works well for Kloss and Chung. And speaking of Kloss, he just made a mistake and has even crashed out as well. Looks like the curb has taken away his wheel there as he pushed a little bit hard, and for Kloss, that's his session done with.
Yeah, and that's not ideal. I mean, he is second fastest, but that's not gonna happen. He won't be second fastest for long, but that is not ideal. He was doing well until this point, had good pace, so shows that the Haas is actually pretty competitive in a straight line.
Yeah, and they have the Ferrari engine, so that would suggest the Ferrari's got some good straight line speed, but clearly it's not really being enough for them to counteract so far the lack of pace they've been showing. But that's Kloss's session done with, a mistake on his own accord there, clearly trying too hard to overtake the Aston Martin. I think that was Andre Sazonov he was trying to overtake there, and well, for Kloss, that's his session done with. So Chung will be the only Haas driver on the track today, and well, for Kloss, it was he was looking very quick, but clearly pushing a bit too hard there in the Haas, and that will be session done for the Polish driver. Of course, got his first ever victory last season at the Belgian Grand Prix de Bartosz Kloss, and given the pace that the Haas has been showing so far, you would imagine that he'll be trying to chase for more this season.
Yeah, and of course he hasn't gotten the pole position yet in the top class, so he'll be looking for to get his first ever pole position in the top class. So let's see if he can get that, and of course he can get many more wins to come.
Indeed so, as Patel currently in 12th place. Chatfield's just gone up to 13th, meanwhile, in the Ferrari. So trying to drag as much performance as he can in the Ferrari, because so far they've not been showing some pretty good pace. He's currently splitting the two Sauber drivers at the moment. Nearly called them Alfa Romeo there. Well, not for long, because Valdinger's got back up into 13th position there. But yeah, I nearly called them Alfa Romeo there, but of course they're not Alfa Romeo anymore. They obviously separated with them. They're just now Sauber again. Martin's in 5th, so 4th and 5th so far for the two Renault drivers. Look like they're showing some pretty good straight line speed, are the Renaults, but so far they've not had any reliability issues so far during these tests. But knock on wood, they'll be hoping that continues for the rest of testing. As speaking of Renaults, Quark just goes up into 2nd there.
Yeah, of course, gone up into 2nd. Now we look at Patel, who's got a Red Bull behind, and of course that's the runner behind. That is Roman Krug behind as well. Not far behind the Red Bull. I think that might be Evan Byrne in the Red Bull. I couldn't quite tell I could quite tell a little bit from the helmet, but I'm not sure if that is Evan Byrne.
Well,
no, yeah, it is.
I'll
It
give-
is Byrne. It says Roke is in the pits. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Given that Roki's in the pits, I'm inclined to believe that is Evan Byrne that was trying to get by there. As speaking of Burns' former teammates, Perrin trying his best to get by on a Lamborghini there, but not able to. Willow's up in 8th place, coming into the pits this time by De Rosa in 12th. So it looks like once again, the McLaren is showing the straight line speed that it was able to demonstrate last season, but they just hope that this season their car is more reliable than what it was last season.
Yeah, they just go hope for that, and it's looking good for them so far. Not really any reliability issues, so it's good for them so far. Patel improves, Korg improves, he goes up into 2nd place.
He does indeed, and 35 thousandths off of former teammate Jesus Perinen at the moment, as Chatfield we're looking at, currently 11th, and showing that the Ferrari does have some very good straight line speed. I mean, the Haas were able to demonstrate that. The Haasses were able to demonstrate that a little bit earlier on, but Chatfield definitely doing his best to try and counteract that. Currently in 11th place, although for Derry at the moment, still struggling at the moment and still trying to adapt to his new team at this stage.
Yeah, so far in 21st, no idea, but there's some time to find for Federi.
Indeed so, as the Aston Martin there, I think that was Sazonov, is just in front of Chatfield at the moment, as Martins goes up into 4th, so 2nd and 4th so far for the Renault. So far demonstrating some very good straight line speed at the moment, and could be a team to look out for when we get to tracks like this at Austria. Speaking of Quark, he's trying to find a way through on the Red Bull there, of obviously that would be Evan Byrne, only George Roger's just come out onto the track, so this is Evan Byrne that Quark is trying to overtake there going into the first corner. So yeah, so far looking at what Quark's been able to do, unless that's setup related, I think the Renaults are definitely showing some very good straight line speed at the moment.
Yeah, so far, and also I think going back to the Red Bull Byrne, he has been struggling to overtake Patel. I don't know, I think it could be down to setup related, because the Red Bull is clearly quicker than the Sauber, but it's odd that Byrne is struggling to overtake Patel, and Quark's is overtaking him.
Indeed so, and still showing some good straight line speed at this stage is Quark, and maybe using the slipstream of Evan Byrne to his advantage there, as Perinen now goes a little bit quicker. There's a 1 minute 3.604 in the Mercedes. So far, Perinen has topped every day so far in testing, and is looking to make it 3 out of 3 so far, and maybe something that Carr needs to raise his eyebrows a little bit if he wants to be on terms with Perinen during this testing. Although he did say, I think jokingly yesterday, he said that usually when somebody has a bad preseason test, they normally end up having a good season when it comes to the actual season itself. So I guess that's what Carr is kind of banking on, really, judging from his comments yesterday on Discord.
Yeah, he's kind of hoping for that, but of course, he's got to be hopeful he doesn't crash into his teammates.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously got a history of doing that with Franco Lopez, but even when they were outside of Mercedes, as we saw with that compilation that Flo made last season, they've even been colliding even before they were teammates, so who's to say they're not going to collide with each other again this season? I mean, if you saw the test race that Yuri did on Sunday, they were still inseparable in that, so who knows, really? Maybe we could see some more shenanigans with those two, and who knows, maybe Perinen and Carr will be the next Carr and Lopez, and well, we'll just have to wait and see. I mean, Perinen and Lopez were making a bit of contact last season with each other, and let's not forget that Perinen was close to being Lopez's teammate for this season, given how close the competition was for Mercedes, but in the end, Perinen, of course, ended up winning that Mercedes battle to partner alongside Amar Carr. And of course, Chung ended up going to Haas. Willows ended up going to McLaren, and Gal sadly ended up without a drive. And he's obviously going to be competing in DTM this season, and he's of course the Mercedes reserve driver for this season. So we might see Gal doing a few practice sessions this season, and maybe the end of season test if Mercedes don't change their lineup for 2024. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Really, Chatfield up on his personal best meanwhile as we ride on board with him. Let's see if he improves on his P13 at the moment. He crosses the line now. And he goes up to P12, so he only gains one position. The Lamborghinis again looking pretty decent in 10th and 11th position, and well, we talked about yesterday how they've not been affected too much by the downtrend, and it seems the same applies to power circuits as well. They don't seem to be affected too much.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem that they've been affected too much. So, looking good. Black was actually looking pretty good. He was actually quicker than Mocho in both days so far. So yeah, and at the moment he is quicker than Mocho again in the third day. So he's up to grips with that Lamborghini compared to Mocho.
Indeed so, as Quarg and Byrne both improve on that occasion. Byrne, speaking of it, trying to overtake one of the Saubers into the first corner there, but not able to pull that off. Quarg now 72 thousandths behind former teammate Perinin. Byrne currently in 5th and his teammate Roke in 7th. So far looking very competitive at the moment, especially around tracks like this. You would expect the lap times to be pretty close to each other, as the two Aston Martins bringing up the rear, and only 300 separating both Suto and Sazonov at the moment, and they are just 2 tenths behind Gabriel Gomez, who so far has not set the best of times, and Lopez is in 16th. So maybe the Toyota's not the best in a straight line, as we've got rain on the screen, as you can see already, looking on board from Laura Chung, but whether it will wet up the track or not, we'll have to wait and see, really. It was expected to just be light rain that we were expecting, so maybe if it was to wetten up, it would only be into conditions, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Suto, that was a little bit of a bizarre one there, just as I think that was Roman Quarg was coming into the pits there on that occasion, but we'll keep an eye on that, whether or not the track will wetten up at the moment. But so far, it's still dry on the track, as you can see, as we look now at Laura Chung, who is currently in 8th position so far in this preseason test, as Kirishima DeRosa doesn't improve, but Videri does. He goes up into 16th. Anderson goes up into 19th position at the moment, as speaking of Videri, he was actually using DeRosa's slipstream, and he gets by him into the first corner there. Blackwood improves to go in front of Mocho and gets himself into 10th position, and so far still 10th and 11th for the two Lamborghini drivers in this session, as Chung is still up on a personal best in the first sector. What's a middle sector going to look like? Only 6 thousandths up on her personal best in that middle sector, so I'm not expecting her to improve on position, and maybe she may not be able to improve in this last sector, but we'll wait and see anyway, as Chung comes onto the pit straight now, then as she now crosses the line and does not improve. As a result, she stays in 8th position, 25 thousandths off her personal best in the end. Roke, meanwhile, does improve. He goes up into 4th position, gets in front of Joantis Martins, meanwhile, and there he is just homing into shot there in the background, just as one of the Renaults comes out onto the racetrack. That'll be Joantis Martins, because Quarg has still got the pit indicator, sorry, got the word pit next to his 3-letter prefix on the timing tower on the left-hand side there. Anderson improves, but remains in 19th position, so far 17th and 19th so far, so yeah, seeming maybe the Williams maybe not strong on straight line speed tracks as they were on the downforce tracks that we saw yesterday, and even well, I'd say yesterday, more on day one I should say, when it was a dry track at Mazzano, but yeah, that's that really. But might as well talk about some other things. Of course, today we will have Blake's first stream as Formula E host. Of course, that pre-season test over at the Circuit Ricardo Tolma in Spain will be taking place at 7 p.m. BST later on tonight, so do look forward to that. I do believe, from what Blake said in the commentary chat, that he's going to be doing the commentary by himself for this stream. I'm not 100% sure if that's what he was implying there or not, but I do believe that is going to be the case. But for most of the season, apart from 2 rounds in particular, I think one of them was the Okayama round and the other one was the Alton Park round, I believe every other race he'll have commentary from different commentators for the other 9 races, but for those 2 races I think he's going to be doing that by himself, I think, from what he said in the commentary chat there. So that's that really, and of course the pre-season test. I'm pretty sure Blake can clarify that if he is in the stream chat. He was earlier on. I don't know if he's just left that chat a little bit early, although it does say on the Discord that he's currently playing Assetto Corsa at the minute. So yeah, that's that really. But anyway, We look now at Franco Lopez, who's down on his personal best in the middle sector. Blackwood improves to go into 10th, well, to remain in 10th, but improves on his lap time at the moment. Even though there's rain, it's still relatively dry on the racetrack, so no sign of dots so far on the racetrack, if there is to be any. Although it is still pretty bright on the racetrack, as you can see in the sky at the moment. But yeah, obviously be interested to see what the pace is going to be like in that Formula E preseason test a little bit later on tonight at 7 p.m. BST over at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo. The first Formula E preseason test since 2020, and ironically, that was also at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo as well. So a bit of an interesting stat there as well. George Roque goes up into third place meanwhile, 2/10 now behind Jesus Perinin. But yeah, only third and sixth at the moment for the Red Bulls. Maybe could they be lacking some straight line speed, I wonder? Or have they just got a setup that's holding them back, I wonder?
It could be down to setup related, but I mean, Roke is up to third, only 2 times off Brennan, so might not be setup related for Roke, but could be setup related to Byrne, but we'll see. They could also be down on straight line speed as well.
Okay, and Blake just clarifying there in the stream chat what the commentary plan is for the season. So thank you for that, Blake. As we now look at Jesus Perinin, who's just not improved there by 0.3 of a second. No sign of the conditions changing out there. As you can see, riding on board with Perinin, there's still dry patches out there at the moment. So far, Quag is still 72,000 off. That is still the tarmac I can see on the floor. That's not dots. That's been like that since the beginning of the session. I think that's just a tarmac texture there, so that's not dots, in case anybody was wondering. Roque further improves. He's now just a 10th behind Jesus Perinin, so he is getting closer and closer to the man that's currently at the top of the timing sheet at the moment as he makes his way around the right-hander there, does Perinin. Looking now at Lopez now then, who's got one of the Renaults right behind him now then, so it could be a bit of a comparison really, see what the Toyota and Renault is like in a straight line speed. We think the Renault's got a very good top end speed, judging from what Quag and Martins have been able to do so far in this test, but I guess it's a good comparison to see what the Toyota is like at the moment. The Toyota is 18th and 20th at the moment, so maybe they're just suffering a little bit on the straight line speed department compared to everybody else, but clearly on the downforce tracks they seem to be pretty decent, it must be said. So that may be something to keep an eye on when we go to Road America next week for the United States Grand Prix, because I think that's more of a power track. But then again, the middle part of the track is where the downforce is, so maybe they could counteract that into Sector 2. But I think for the rest of the track where the high speed is very high priority, then maybe the Toyota could suffer a little bit, but we'll have to wait and see. Roque is now under a 10th now behind Perinin, and in fact he's only 5 thousandths behind Roman Quag at the moment, so still in third place at the moment is George Roque. Of course, Kloss is not going to be out on the track for the remainder of the session, of course. Because obviously, if you didn't see early on in the session, Kloss crashed out in this session after trying to find a way through on Andrei Sazonov, but locked up going into the second last corner, and the curb on the exit there clearly ripping his suspension off, as I think somebody mentioned in the stream chat that it was basically paper suspension. The suspension looked like it was made of paper on that occasion, but clearly it did enough to rip off Kloss's suspension, and that's why he's not taking any further part in the session. So really can't really read too much into Kloss's time. I think if he was able to still continue in the session, I think we would have seen more improvement from the Polish driver.
Yeah, no idea. Of course, he's got lack of running, but you have to recap on that one and catch up going into day 4.
Yeah, indeed, as Perinin is now coming back into the pits this time by. He's actually coming up behind an Aston Martin, ironically, just as we were talking about Kloss there. But yeah, so Perinin's still at the top of the timing screens, looking to make it 3 out of 3 sessions where he's topped the session. And who knows, really, could this be the year that Perinin maybe gets that World Championship in the bag in only what would be only his 3rd season in the top class? That would be something, but he'll probably have some tough competition. Speaking of Mercedes there, Armar Car just goes, improves. He goes into 5th place, gets himself in front of Joantas Martins there. As Perinin now then making his way in towards the final couple of the corners now then we go, as he's already overtaken Joseph Frederick Suto there, and Suto getting a little bit held up, but luckily for him he was not on a lap on that occasion, as he's still in 21st, as his teammate Sazonov improves but remains in last position. In fact, Suto has got just over a 10th over Sazonov at this stage. Mocha improves but remains in P11 in this session, and in case anybody didn't see the tyres, we are once again using the hard tyres for this test, just like we saw at Mazzano, and I think even Yuri put in the announcements channel in the brackets again, as in not again, but yeah, it seems that the I guess we'll call it Yuri's wheel seems to be obsessed with the hard tyre for some reason, but Yeah, that's that really. So that's why we're once again using the hard tyre for the final 2 days of the test. Hopefully, it'd be a different tyre when we get to Road America next week, but we'll wait and see on that one. Car now then goes up into fourth position now then in the Mercedes, but still 2 tenths away from his teammate Jesus Perinin at the moment. Lopez coming back in 19th and 20th so far for the two Toyota drivers, and not faring too well around here at the Red Bull Ring today, but don't. Who knows? Maybe they're holding some pace back a little bit. Who knows? I think, looking at the conditions, I think it might have actually stopped raining now. So it looked like it was just a little bit of a shower that we just had earlier on. So, yeah, it just seems that the rain has cleared away. But as we saw with the weather forecast before the session began, we could expect some more rain to come a little bit later on, but only light rain at the moment. But, yeah, only a slight shower at the moment, Ra, and clearly still dry conditions at the moment, as we just have 22 minutes to go in this session.
Yeah, it was a light shower. Didn't really affect much on the track, of course. I don't think the rain will come back. I don't think it will come back. So yeah, there'll be a lot more improvements to come as we see Anderson improving up to 14th place.
Yep, indeed, and currently finding a little bit more pace in the Williams at the moment, as his teammate Sonto was just in front of that Haas, as Willows has a little bit of a wiggle going into the middle part of the lap. Still up in 9th place at the moment is Willows, so showing some good pace in that McLaren. Clearly the straight line speed working well. Teammate De Rosa, on the other hand, currently down in 16th at this stage, but Willows trying to find that extra bit of pace around here in the McLaren, and obviously was gutted to miss out on the Mercedes seat for this season, but he'll be hoping to try and do well for McLaren. He'll be hoping it's a better season than the one he had last season, where he picked up his lowest ever points haul in the OC as a whole. I think he only managed single figures from what I remember. I think he only scored 7 points in the end, but it should have arguably been more, but mechanical problems prevented him from doing that. Sontag goes up to 17th, just as we view his teammate Anderson, who's up on his personal best at the moment in the Williams, as he just comes out of the final corner. Is Anderson going to further improve on his lap? And he is, but he still remains in 14th position, only improved by 0.02 of a second there. Did Julius Anderson. So, yeah, that's that really. And so far, the Williams is looking to be middle of the road at the moment in terms of the midfield during these tests. But yeah, so far, one thing I've noticed with the Williams, even though they've looked quick, maybe inconsistency could creep in for them, like we saw with Renault last season.
Yeah, we could see that. Time will tell. Let's see if both Williams drivers can do well this season. But inconsistency will be a factor here.
Yep, as meanwhile Suto gets up into 20th place, so now an Aston Martin finds itself in a Toyota sandwich, and a Toyota finds itself in an Aston Martin sandwich so far in this session. Anderson is coming back into the pits at the end of this lap, despite the fact he was up on his personal best in the middle sector. Speaking of Williamses, Sontag goes up into 16th position. We now look at Chris Chatfield, who's up in 13th place at the moment in the Ferrari, as he now makes his way out of the final turn and onto the pit straight now then. Will go the Ferrari driver, and he still remains in 13th for the time being now. Then as he now makes his way up towards the first corner now then on the racetrack, and so far trying his best to drag whatever is in that Ferrari, because so far testing has not gone well for the prancing horse, it must be said. With just under 20 minutes to go then, this is what the leaderboard currently looks like then. It's Perinin at the top with Quarg in second, Roke in third, Carr in fourth, Kloss in fifth, with Martins in sixth, Byrne is in seventh, followed by Chung in eighth, Willows is in ninth, with Blackwood in 10th, Mocho in 11th, with Patel in 12th, then it is Chatfield in 13th, followed by Anderson 14th, Valdinger in 15th, Sontag 16th, De Rosa is in 17th, with Vaderi in 18th, Lopez in 19th, Suto is in 20th, with Gomez in 21st, and Sazonov in 22nd position there. So, yeah, that's that really, as Sontag goes up to 16, improves him more, and he has a bit of a wiggle going through into the first corner there, pushing a bit too hard. But judging from comments that we saw with Sontag and even Anderson during Discord, it seems that that Sontag seems pretty positive about this season.
Yep, and that's what I was hoping for, and what we all were expecting. And let's see what he can do this season. Hopefully, it's better than last season. But of course, last season he did well as well. So, still hope that he get more points than last season, and also do better in the ratings.
Yeah, indeed, and who knows really. Obviously, we know how many seasons that Sontag has been loyal to Williams, but of course, let's not forget as well that Sontag did actually put Renault as his first choice for this season. Of course, missed out in the end to Juventus Martins, who had an amazing rookie season despite the car that he was in last season, the Aston Martin, of course. But Sontag has been loyal to Williams. Will he still be that way by the end of the season? Will he still be that way for next season, I should say? Or will he try and maybe move to another team? That's going to be quite an interesting one to look at, that's for sure. Somebody comes out of the pit lane there just in front of Sontag there. Not sure who that was, but we've currently got, well, unless you count Kloss, 3 cars in the pits. Sorry, 4 cars in the pits, actually. That was the pit indicator there next to Anderson was kind of hidden there whilst we were running aboard with his teammate. But in the pit lane, along with Kloss, we have Willows, Anderson, and Suto at the moment. So we look at Suto's teammate, Sazonov, who is hoping for a good season despite the car that he's in. And so far, once again, even though it does appear like Aston do have the worst car on the grid, like we were talked about the last couple of days, it doesn't appear by too much that they're the slowest. So maybe they can maybe grab more points than what Williams did last season.
Yeah, maybe they could do that, and let's see what they can do. And if their pace is good, then yeah, they could fight for legit points.
Yeah, indeed, as Sazonov now then making his way down the straight now, then we go, and Sazonov does not improve by 7/10 of a second that time by, not quite in the slipstream train that's in front, because there's a huge train of cars that's in front of the rookie at the moment, and so far, more cars since we were talking there have just come into the pit lane at the moment to join everybody else. Chatfield's just come back in as is, and we already mentioned Anderson. Baldinger also in pit lane at the moment. So a few more cars have joined him at the moment. But now Sazonov maybe just getting a little bit of slipstream in front from Laura Chung in front. And he's now up on his personal best in the first sector. So, but at the moment, I don't think he's going to leap above Gomez at the moment, because he was only 800s up on his personal best in that first sector. Unless he can find some more time in his last 2 sectors. But I guess we'll have to wait and see, really, as he now rounds the left-hander. And you may have noticed as well on the top of the def panel, Yuri forgot to do this yesterday, but thankfully because of the wet conditions it affected it too much, he has now increased the amount of laps that drivers are doing in practice, because of course you may have seen in the previous couple of days that there were drivers who were getting checkered flags before the session came to a close, and well, he's now gone and increased the laps to try and avoid people getting checkered flags before the end of the session. Sazonov and Gomez were able to improve in the meantime now then. So Sazonov able to now be 1.3 seconds behind Perinin, 1.3 seconds covering the whole pack at the moment. But it does appear that maybe, I think the pecking order is a little bit closer than what it was last season. But I think we're still, judging from what we saw at Mazzano and judging from that huge gap between Renault and Lamborghini that we saw, I think we're still looking at the those 4 possibly being towards the front. And in the case of Renault, doing what they did last season, which was basically be involved when at certain circuits, really.
Yeah, and let's see what happens going into the season. I mean, someone outside the top 4 teams could have massive variation and could challenge them as well.
Indeed so, as Byrne was trying to keep it side by side there with Joseph Frederick Suto coming around the final corner. Suto starts the lap, but it looks like Byrne is going to overtake him going into the first corner there, so a little bit of side by side action through into that final couple of corners, and Byrne gets through into the first corner there. Byrne currently in 7th place at the moment, and well, it wasn't the best of weekends last season for Red Bull here at the Red Bull Ring. Lopez definitely having better strategy, winning from, I think it was Perinin in the end, and the Renault, if I'm not mistaken, but yeah, that's pretty much that. Here's Joseph Willows, who's just come back out onto the racetrack, but he's 2 tenths down on his personal best in Sector 1. Clearly still trying to get some heat into the tyres at the moment, but still in the top 10 at the moment is the McLaren driver. I think he will be satisfied with that if he keeps this up for the remaining just under 14 minutes left in this session now then. As Carr goes up into 4th place, meanwhile, in the Mercedes, so he's able to improve, gets himself in front of Bartosz Kloss there, so he's under 2 tenths now behind teammate Perinin. Chung still getting held up here by the Aston Martin of Jose Frederick Suter, but gets by him into the second to last corner, so maybe we'll be able to get a clean lap this time by. She's still currently down in 8th position. Of course, Chung did win here back in 2021 when she was driving for Lamborghini, so she's obviously got some good memories around this track. And given that she's in a car that would think on paper could fight with Mercedes and Red Bull this season, you would think that maybe, just maybe, that she's looking for more victories like with Barcia's Kloss this season.
Yeah, and more victories to come for Lord Chung. Let's see what she can do this season.
The two Aston Martins, they're holding each other up, going up into the Remus curve there, as Willow's now finding himself 1/10 down on his personal best in Sector 1, so a little bit quicker than the previous lap, but still not quicker than his overall best so far throughout this pre-season testing, as now Willow's making his way towards a double left-hander, as now Carr improves. He's now 1/10 behind Hayes' Perinen's, well, his teammate, I should say. They're not at different teams anymore, they're now teammates, so... Yeah, that's that really, as now Sazonov is going to try and overtake his teammate into the penultimate corner. I think, actually, it's a little bit strange to see Sazonov getting by Suto pretty quickly there, because Suto's on more fresher tyres than what Sazonov is at the moment. So maybe Suto struggling to get the tyre temperatures up at the moment.
Yeah, possibly, and of course this is the hard side, so it is pretty difficult to warm those up.
Indeed so, as Willow's now then just making his way towards Remus Curve now then. And so far, still in 9th position. Is he going to be up in his personal best? He is actually coming up to the back of those two Aston Martin cars, so maybe he'll get some slipstream from them, but he's still 1/10 down in Sector 1, but let's see if he does get held up or not. But yeah, so far, the McLaren has not broken down so far in pre-season testing, unlike what we saw last season when we were at the first day of Paul Ricard. After Willow set his first flying lap, his car already breaking down on him, and he ended up, I think, finishing last in that test from what I remember as a result of that. So yeah, so far going well for Joseph Willows at this stage, and I think it'll be pretty positive at the moment as the session progresses. He'll be hoping he stays here for the remainder of the session. We just saw Carr there further improve. He's now just over a 10th behind Perinen, so he's getting closer and closer to the two drivers in front. Could he possibly get below a 10th by the end of it? Sazonov further improves, but still remains in last, and so far the two Aston Martins are still bringing up the rear of this session, and we're pretty much now at the 30-minute mark, but so far, although we did see rain a little bit earlier on, we haven't seen any more rain since. I know it was only like a 5% chance that we were looking at during this test at the moment. But yeah, I think safe to say, so far the rain is clearing away, and as I'll say that, next shot you'll see there'll be more rain coming. But so far, looks like as long as, knock on wood, we might actually have a clean session. I say a clean session, a dry session, as now Carr does get below a 10th now behind Perinen. But yeah, it looks like so far it could be a dry session throughout. As I think Rob has actually disappeared there. So, yeah, I was expecting him to...
I had some lag. I didn't hear what you just said.
Oh, I was just saying that, knocking on wood, we should expect a dry session throughout, because we're at that point where there was supposed to be more rain, but it doesn't look like it's arrived.
Yeah, right now it looks like we won't see any more rain. Of course, as you alluded to earlier, it was a 5% chance, so yeah, it was pretty much unlike a situation where it will rain, but who knows, maybe that 5% chance could happen.
Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. We've still got just under 10 minutes left of this session now then. Willows has already overtaken the Aston Martin there of Joseph Frederick Suto. Two Josephs now in the field, it must be said, although two completely different spellings, it must be said. And we also have Willows has a bit of a moment going for the right. And as Carr now goes up into second place, and he's only 8 thousandths behind Hayes' Perinen now then. So that's how close it is between the two Mercedes. Is he going to further continue and maybe try and get to the top of the standings? We shall wait and see. But so far, the Mercedes have so far topped every session in testing so far, and it looks like no other team has been able to try and get to the top, although looking at the gaps it's still looking pretty close despite the fact that Mercedes have topped every session so far.
Yeah, it is pretty close, but of course when we get to the actual races going into Road America, you can't rule out Red Bull or Haas at all, so they could probably be quicker than Mercedes and maybe even Renault if they are there.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Renault because so far they've looked pretty quick around the high-speed tracks, so maybe they could interfere at tracks like Road America Maybe is Interlagos counted as a power track? I'm not really sure. I don't know how people would view Interlagos. Is that more of a power track, or would you say that's more of a downforce track? I'm not really sure. Aragon, I think that is a considered more of a. Actually, I'd say that's more of a downforce track, if I'm being honest. Despite that long straight that we have on that track, I think most of the corners is more downforce dependent. So maybe Renault may not do just as well there, but they could still be right in. They could be still right behind, rating to pounce. Who knows, really? And then when we get to Baku, that's obviously a high-speed track, so you'd imagine Renault to do well there. Of course, they did well there last season, let's not forget. Romain Quark got a podium there last time out, was able to beat both the Mercedes on pure pace that time whilst the Red Bulls were streaking away into the distance. So, yeah, Renault showed some good pace there. Mazzano, they showed some good, despite it being a downforce track, they have shown some decent pace around there, and were able to show it last season as well, before they ended up having a mechanical failure for both cars, really. One of them preventing Quark from getting another podium that race. So, yeah, that's that. Hockenheim, that's also a high-speed track, so maybe expect the Renaults to do well there. And then we go to Catalonia, that's more of a downforce track, so maybe not as well there either. And then when we go to Paul Ricard, that's, I guess, a mix of the two, really. So I guess it could work both ways, really, when you look at it. Austria, we're here today, and as you can see, power track, it's definitely working well for the Renault. Silverstone, it's a mix of the two, like with Paul Ricard, but I guess a better track than Paul Ricard, if I'm being totally honest. But Belgium, I'd say that's more of a high-speed track, so maybe the Renault will do well there. Same with Monza, obviously. Portimao, I guess that's a downforce track mainly, so not sure. But then again, Quag was fighting for a podium there last season for Renault, so maybe. I'm just trying to list off the tracks they could do well. Melbourne, that's obviously a downforce track, so maybe not. Suzuka, I think that's the same, even though it is high speed. Although, no, I think that's more of a downforce track now that I think about it. Sepang, that's obviously a downforce track, apart from those two long straights that you have there, but it's more considered a downforce track than a high-speed track. Mexico City, it's a downforce track. I think that says itself despite that long straight. Jeddah, that's a power track, obviously. It's the fastest street. It's obviously got the name the fastest street track for a reason, so I think that gives you a bit of a clue there. Bahrain is a high-speed track. Balcarce, I'd say that's more of a downforce track when we went there last season. But when we went there last season, of course, excluding the chaotic race that we had last season, that's been... Obviously, lap times were pretty close around there due to how short the track is. So, who knows, really? Looking at the times we're seeing here, it could be a very exciting qualifying session now. I would say that Balcarce last season, even though the race was chaotic with the wet conditions, of course, hopefully it's not the case this time around, because I think Flo might have fixed that chicane for both the wet conditions and even the dry conditions, although we never really got to see what the top class cars were like in the dry conditions around that chicane. Hopefully it should be a good race and hopefully a good qualifying session like it was last season. And then Abu Dhabi, I think it's a mix of the two, really, if we're being totally honest. But, I think there could be some tracks where the Renault could really capitalise, really. But whether it be enough to go for a title charge or not, I'm not really sure,
Yeah, that's a bit of a question mark and pretty much a doubt, but we'll see. It does depend on the variation. If they have good variation, then yeah, they might have a chance.
Indeed so. We're looking at Franco Lopez now. They're not with the best of sessions for the Toyota, and even Franco Garber pointing out in the stream chat that maybe they don't have the straight line speed, but they've definitely got a good downforce package at them, so maybe the straight line speed is something they'll look to work on. As a Burn improves, but only into 6th position. Sazonov will run on board. We're currently on an improvement, as you can see on the def panel on the top of your screen there, as he just rounds the final corner now, then onto the pit straight goes Andrei Sazonov, crosses the line now then, and he does improve, but still remains in 22nd. In fact, the whole pack separated by 1.1 seconds, so pretty close all round, it must be said.
Yeah, pretty close all around. And yeah, could be interesting to see what they can do in qualifying going into Austria, when we get there. Of course, we don't know which tire they will be using. Of course, since we are using the hard tires, we don't know what they could do on the mediums or the softs.
Indeed so, and we'll just have to wait and see how it really goes, really. We run on board with Andrei Sazonov now, then, who's just making his way around the double left-hander now, then, on the racetrack, as he now makes his way around the left and right-hander. Let's see what his middle sector looks like, or not, because the TV director says no. We're going to look at Lopez, who's coming into the pit at the end of this lap. So even though it's been positive for Mazzano, I don't think Toyota are going to take a lot of positives out of this test so far. But maybe they might be holding something back for day 4. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, maybe they could be holding something back, but we'll see. But if they do struggle in day 4, then I feel like they might not be looking good going into the high-speed tracks.
Yeah, indeed, as a car does not improve. He's still 8 thousandths behind Jesus Perinin at this stage. Now, then, Sazonov is coming back into the pits at the end of this lap. He's, in fact, gone in front of Suto whilst we were talking there. So now Sazonov in front of Suto as we speak now, then. I don't know if he got a little bit of a helping hand from that Renault in front that's there. I think that's Roman Quagg that's in front at the moment. It is Quagg because Martins is currently in the pits at the moment, as you can see on the timing tower on the left-hand side of your screen there, as Sazonov makes his way around the double left-hander now, then using quite a bit of curve on the outside, through into the left and right-hander. We will go now then, as he now makes his way towards the final couple of turns. We will go now then. And so that's that really, as Sazonov now then making his way back into the pits. Is this the last time we're going to see him for today? We'll have to wait and see, of course. There's still just over 2.5 minutes to go in the session. Willows is going to get, I'd say, at least 3 more laps before the session comes to a close, unless that Williams behind him has other ideas. Like that Williams is trying to line him up from an overtake. I think that's Felix Sontag, one of Joseph Willows' former teammates in the past, that's trying to get by him. And it looks like his teammate is also not far behind either. So he's got both Williamses right behind him now as Joseph Willows. As Isonto going to try and overtake into the Remus curve. He's going to think about it. But Willows just keeps track position there for the moment. But both of them will have wrecked their times as a result of that now then. And so that's pretty much that as they now make their way in towards this hairpin now then, before they make their way towards the middle part of the track where the downforce is quite critical, but it's not really much the downforce is needed for, really, because it's all mainly straight line speed around here, of course, on this track. And I think we're now going to remain on board with the drivers for the remainder of the session. Blackwood, no improvement. He stays in 10th place. Valdinger starting a lap. De Rosa doesn't improve. He stays in 17th position. George Roque, across the line, he goes in the Red Bull, and he stays in 4th position. Verderi just starting a lap, same with Michael Mocho. Quagg doesn't improve. Gomez just starting a lap now. Then here comes Joseph Willows in the McLaren. He's not going to improve because Sontag interfered. Same with Sontag. He doesn't improve. Anderson doesn't improve either. Here comes Almar Carr in the Mercedes as he now comes onto the pit straight. Across the line he goes. No improvement for him in the Mercedes. As now here comes Joseph Frederick Suto in the Aston Martin now then. He just comes down the pit straight and no improvement for him. Jesus Perinin now then approaching the final couple of turns, and unless somebody beats him towards the end, it looks like it's going to be 3 out of 3 days that Perinin is going to be at the top of the timing sheets. But anyway, Perinin now then coming onto the pit straight. He crosses the line, no improvement, stays where he is. Chris Chatfield now then out of the final turn he goes. He now makes his way onto the pit straight across the line, and he stays in 13th position at the moment. Rahul Patel, who's currently in 12th position at the moment. A decent day for Sauber at the moment, being 12th and 15th. But Patel now then crosses the line, no improvement for him. Here comes Jafari Blackwood. He stays in 10th. Oh, Valdinger looks like he's made a mistake coming around the final corner there, and it looks like maybe Valdinger pushing a bit too hard, and yeah, he made the mistake coming around the final corner. In fact, he made 2 mistakes, in fact. One to the penultimate corner and one to the final corner as well. Clearly the momentum taking him there into that final turn, as both he and De Rosa do not improve there. Roque, no improvement, stays where he is. Andre Verderi across the line, no improvement for him. Quagg, no improvement for him. Same with Mocho. Same for Gomez. Not been the best of days for Toyota, as we talked about a little bit earlier on. Willows, no improvement. Sontag, no improvement. Anderson, no improvement. Martin starting a lap, but it looks like it's going to get compromised, so he's only going to get 1 more flying lap. Carr, no improvement. Lopez will get 1 more flying lap before the session comes to a close. 9, 8, 7, and now it is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And the checkered flag is out. That is the end of the session. Joseph Frederick Suto was the last car to cross the line there. Perinin crosses the line. No improvement, stays where he is. Chris Chatfield, round the final turn, goes the Ferrari driver as he now makes his way onto the pit straight. Chatfield across the line. No improvement, stays where he is. Rahul Patel now then making his way in towards the final turn onto the pit straight now then. he will go as Patel now then comes across the line now then, and he does not improve. Blackwood across the line, no improvement for him. Valdinger, who made the mistake earlier on, probably with shot tyres now at this point, he crosses the line, no improvement for him. Roke, no improvement either. De Rosa comes back into the pits. Videri crosses the line, no improvement. Quag, no improvement, got held up there by the Ferrari. Mocho doesn't improve either, nor does Gomez, and I think the same is going to apply for Joseph Willows here. Yep, same for Sontag. Martins crosses the line, no improvement, got held up by Anderson, who doesn't improve. Carr comes back in, there comes Lopez, round the final turn. He will go now then. I'm not expecting an improvement from the three-time world champion, and he stays where he is as a result. Suto, the last car to cross the line, crosses the line now then, and no improvement. And that is day 3 done with Perrin and Tok, Carr in second place, and Quag in third position. So overall, once again, Perrin top of the leaderboard, but Renault looking pretty strong around the high-speed tracks.
Yeah, they're looking good in the high-speed tracks. Let's see what day 4 brings us.
Yeah, indeed. Well, that has been it then for day 3 of pre-season testing. I hope you have enjoyed it. A very, very close session indeed, and some very interesting stuff to gather, and definitely seeing some more strengths and weaknesses in terms of the power units of this track, because obviously this track is a lot more different to Misano. Of course, Misano being a downforce track and this being a high-speed track, and we've definitely seen some different results here at the Red Bull Ring, especially with the Toyotas. But that has been it then, guys. But of course, we're not done with live streams just yet, because coming up in 1 hour and 45 minutes time, so at 7 p.m. BST, we will have the pre-season test for Formula E over at the Circuit Ricardo Tormo in Valencia, Spain. So do look forward to that. It'll be Blake's first stream as well, so do look forward to that. But until then, guys, that has been it. I hope you have enjoyed. So thank you all for watching. I'm JW97. He's been Ra, and if we don't see you for the Formula E pre-season test later on tonight, we will see you then tomorrow at the same time of 4:30 p.m. BST for the final day of top class pre-season testing before the start of the new season. Till then, take care.
Bye.